Eric Idle, one of my idols. His list of credits is so long, but among the highlights, in 1969, he co-created Monty Python's Flying Circus. He later starred with his Python pals in films Monty Python and the Holy Grail and The Life of Brian. He's written musicals, the award-winning Spamalot among them. He's appeared on television, on stage, he's written books, and now he has this really wonderful memoir, Always Look on the Bright Side of Life. And I know everybody knows the words to that song, right? Always, thank you. His friend and somebody who I also think is absolutely hilarious and wonderful, Ryan Stiles, joined Second City Comedy Ensemble in 1986. Film work, he's done film work and television. He's best known for his work on the American and British versions of Whose Line Is It Anyway? And the role of Louis Kaniski on The Drew Carey Show. He played Herb Melnick on the CBS comedy 2.5 Men and appeared on the show Drew Carey's Improvaganza. And he was born in Seattle. Put your hands together for Eric Idle and Ryan Stiles, and a great evening.
Hi. All right. I'm going to put that there.
Right?
Hello, good evening. Hello, thank you.
Yes.
God bless you.
Ladies and gentlemen.
I'm going to... Sorry.
Are you playing already?
No, I'm just plugging in.
All right.
I'm just doing that there. This is a little bit of housekeeping.
Oh, we actually have a balcony, too. That's wonderful.
That's all right, sorry.
Came a little...
All right. Well, that opening went very well, didn't it?
It was
Yeah,
very good.
I thought it was good.
I wish we had arms.
Yeah?
I mean, not on the chairs, I mean.
Really?
Wouldn't it be nice to be sitting like this? Wouldn't that be much better?
I don't know, you look rather nice.
I guess the main question I want to ask to start is...
How's the audio for everybody? Can you hear? Yes. Honest? Is it good? You want more? More audio. Up, please, Dave. Can you go? How's that? Is that better? More up. Are we at the highest we can go? Because otherwise we have to use these darn things and we look like French television. Everybody on French television always has microphones. If there's a panel of 6 people, they all have microphones. Because none of them will ever shut up, so, yeah. Anyway.
Are they better? Is that better?
Are you happy with that? Yes. Okay.
As long... Oh, so we should... all right. The fact that you've picked me to come and do this with you says to me that you really don't know that many people in Seattle.
I know quite a lot of people in Seattle, but none as funny as you.
Oh, well, that's fair.
Okay. And I wondered, I've dragged you down from Bellingham, which is very, very kind of you.
I did, yeah.
Yeah, so
it's a long drive.
I'm very honored that you would come and consent to do this silly evening with me.
I should say I'm not a fan. But this is going to look great on my resume, so.
Well, there's not much on
What
it.
number is this? This is number 5?
This is only, 1, 2, 3, 4, this is 5.
5.
Yes. I've been doing a series of conversations, and what I really like about the format is this, you get the other guy, which is really interesting. So instead of like doing a show, it's all spontaneous or improvised, and I like that about it.
Then why did we rehearse for 3 hours before this? Doesn't make any sense at all.
You dragged me into improvisation world.
I did, yeah. That wasn't my fault, though.
It wasn't?
No, I didn't suggest that.
About 4 years ago?
Yeah, I think so.
They were at the Moore Theatre, Who's Live, and Jeff Davis said, will you come and watch me? And I said, all right, if I must. And they were on stage. I said, don't you dare try and get me on stage. And so he's backstage and he says, Eric, he's really going to hurt me if I try and bring him on stage. And Proop says, he doesn't scare me. And so he did. He dragged me on, and it's really to be put on the spot. You know, you're either a complete arsehole and have to sit there, or you come on stage.
This is how Eric Idle was dragged onto stage. Okay. Yeah. Because he hates performing. But you live in LA, right?
Yes.
Okay, because I read all kinds of different things where you live. In Vermont?
That's in Wikipedia.
Is that in Wikipedia?
You should never believe anything in Wikipedia.
Did you live in Vermont?
I have never lived in Vermont.
Well, now I'm curious about Wikipedia. What other false things are on Wikipedia that we don't know about?
My 4th and 5th marriage.
Never happened?
Never happened.
How many? Is it 3 marriages?
No, I'm only on my 2nd.
Oh.
I got stuck on my 2nd.
Well, I'm wondering what happened to the 3rd then. You said
Well,
your
I'm
4th
still
and 5th.
waiting.
Oh, you're still waiting on that.
My daughter from the 2nd marriage is there, and I've been with my current wife for 41 years.
Yes.
As you will
nice.
know. And I'm happy to say she's not here tonight.
Right. And you said you fell in love with her at first sight.
I did, actually.
Really?
It's true, absolutely.
How do you know that when it happens at first sight, though? Number one, were you drinking?
Not more than normally,
Right,
no.
yeah.
No. I come off a beach in Barbados that very day. I flew to New York. Lorne Michaels met me and took me to Saturday Night Live. And I went to a party, and afterwards, this young, beautiful woman asked me to dance. And I danced, and after 2 minutes, I was just completely overcome. I couldn't speak, and I said, I'm never going to leave you. And she said, yeah, right, you know. And I haven't. It's 41 years ago.
Wow. Was that during the 80s?
77.
77, wow.
Yeah.
And you weren't high or drunk or anything?
Well, it was a Saturday Night Live party, so it wasn't entirely so, you know. They did that just to do the show.
Right. Well, I'm surprised, and I'm not, you know, I don't remember, I'm surprised about this book that you remember this much, because I don't remember half of my life.
Well, because...
And you have such detail in this book, stuff I would never remember.
Well, you weren't there.
Oh, that's true. That is true. That's true. I never thought of that. Right.
But I think what happened was when Lily, my daughter who's here, was born at the same time as the computer. And so when she was a baby in New York, a friend gave me a computer. And the great thing about the computer is it never forgets. So every time I thought something was amusing, I'd write it down, or maybe we had a Python meeting. And I would always jokingly file it under Say No More, the memoirs of an ex-comedian.
Well, oh, yeah.
And so I had all this stuff, which is kind of useful when you go back. I rewrote it mainly, but it was nice to have that basis of things to recall.
Were you at her birth?
Yes.
Yeah?
Absolutely, I was.
Were you at all your births, all your kids' births?
Both of them,
Oh,
yes.
both of them, yeah. Oh, we're still sticking to that, are we? Okay.
Yeah, she was born at St. Thomas's Hospital in the South London.
Oh, wow.
Which is nice.
Yeah.
And then we moved here when she was about 3 or 4.
Right to Vermont?
To put her to Vermont. To put her through school.
Right.
Yeah.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Well, that's all I had to ask.
Okay. And of course, she was at college at Whitman. In Walla Walla,
Oh, yeah.
Which is nice, you know, very close, and some of our friends are here tonight. Hello, Hawk, I didn't see you before. How are you? Yeah, Tabitha, Josh, they're all here, all her friends, her gang. She's up for to meet with them. They're nice, very nice people.
What's a very nice city?
It is a nice city. I spent a lot of time here.
Yeah, it's much better than you're going to LA after this, and they're not going to be a very good crowd in LA, you know that right now. And you just came from the Midwest, right?
And
so they're a little more conservative there. And how did your songs go over there?
It went well. It went well. They're happy you show up. You know.
Well,
it was
Midwest,
Naperville,
yeah.
which is nice.
Yeah.
And it was Bob Odenkirk, who was born in Naperville.
Oh, he was?
Yeah.
Oh.
Anyway, we've lost them now. You see.
No, we haven't.
Oh, okay.
No, they're enthralled. They just half of them
I was
have
just
no
wondering
idea.
if I should do a quick song.
What's that?
Shall I do a quick song?
Yes.
Shall we?
Well, I'm not going to.
Okay.
But I would love to
So
watch
I'd
you
like
do
to.
it.
Can I do a quick song?
Yes.
This is all. Now, I have to say something because I haven't been in a church since I left school when I was 19. And it sort of scares me a little because I was in the choir.
Do you have a clean song?
No.
Okay.
But
I'm moving here.
this is no, I don't have such a thing. But
I'm getting out of
this
your
is
way.
a very quick one. I just thought I thought I'd just see if you. This is something I wanted to say, and it's very important to me. It's a serious. This is serious, really. Okay. Here's a little song It won't take very long. It's about the world today, and it's something I really need to say. Fuck selfies, all those gits who ask for selfies, they just get on my tits. Then you're grinning like a lunatic with people you don't know. It takes them half an hour to get their fucking phones to go, and then another 15 other fucking people show. Selfies are a waste of fucking time. So tell those selfish selfie gits next time they ask to take their bloody selfie sticks and shove them up there. Fuck selfies. Those kids. Anyway, that's all I have. Thank you very much.
No, that's not all you have.
That's it. Come on. Yeah.
You're just working
Oh,
on
no.
it?
There we go. Swap over. What?
Use your mics. They can't hear you very
They can't hear us. You
Do we
should
have to
come
start
earlier.
all over from the beginning again?
Yeah. So
I don't
Ryan,
think this one's-
Ryan, how did you get into the business?
This is not working either, is it? Check 1, 2, 2, 2. I don't remember. I really don't remember.
No?
No.
Were you Second City?
Yeah, but that was later on.
Like
I think I
college?
played a lot of strip clubs and stuff when I did stand up. But seriously, yeah.
Like Cheech and Chong?
Well, Tommy Chong was from
Yeah.
Vancouver too.
Aha.
We played a few of the same places, yeah.
Vancouver.
This isn't about me, Eric. I haven't got a book out. See, I always said if I ever wrote a book, I would have to wait till my mother died. Because there would be too much I don't want her to know.
Well, mine's gone quite a while, so
Right.
I'm fairly safe, you know.
I find that your relationships blow me away, the people that you've known throughout your life. And I just, Robin, of course, that you talk about in your book, and George Harrison. And I can't imagine what it'd be like hanging out with George Harrison. I mean, what would you guys do on an average day?
Well, it was nice. I mean, he's a regular guy, you know. I mean, when I met him, he was not a Beatle anymore. He'd finished being a Beatle. And
But do you ever finish being a Beatle?
Well, I mean, you don't go on the road, or
Right.
he'd stopped touring,
Right.
and he didn't like it, and he hated it, or, you know, being one of them, you know, because it's sort of constricting. So he has this huge, wonderful house in Friar Park in Henley, which is like a big Gothic mansion. It was actually bigger than my boarding school. And it has a model of the Matterhorn in the garden, a huge Matterhorn. It has ice caves. You could get in little boats and go underneath the waterfalls. It's just a magic place built by this eccentric millionaire, Sir Frank Crisp, in 1880 or something like that. So it's like a Victorian Disneyland. It was an extraordinary place, and he had in it the most amazing studio he'd built. And, you know, he'd record, and he always loved playing and recording. And then sometimes we'd stay in a room, and it had every single major Beatle guitar on the wall. You know, there's every single one. You know, it was amazing, from every era. But it was, you know, he was a very regular guy, wasn't he? He taught Lily to drive.
What? He did?
On the lawn.
Really?
On the lawn with what was that car? A smart car. He drove all over the lawn teaching Lily to drive.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah,
That's
yeah.
wild.
Were you about 12 or something? 9, sorry, yeah.
That doesn't seem very smart at all, does it really? Did you ever go out and people would recognize you and not him?
Once we were filming the Rutles, and I was dressed as Dirk McQuickley, who was the Paul McCartney character, and Neil Innes was John Lennon, and we were by the famous crossroads on Abbey Road, and George came to visit, and he was pushed out of the way by somebody who came up to us and asked us if we were the real ones. He said, well, sure, we've been here 10 years dressed like this, you know. So
And you wrote that on your own, didn't you, the Rutles?
I wrote it, yeah.
Yeah.
Right, but I didn't write. Neil wrote all the songs. I wrote the film, and I directed.
Who was easiest to write with?
I didn't write with anybody.
You didn't?
No, I like writing alone.
Really?
Yes, I don't like talking.
Was that the case with all of you, or?
No, Graham Chapman would write with John Cleese, and Michael Palin would write with Terry Jones.
Oh, really?
So the two writing blocks.
And you?
And me in the middle, yeah.
Oh, wow. You never
I
took that
know.
personally?
It's harder because I had to make all 4 of them laugh to sell my bits. And they always,
Right.
they always had something going, ha, 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 as their friend read it out, you know. So, and I think there was a wonderful moment when George came to visit us on The Life of Brian. He said, how's it going? And I said, well, you know, it's kind of hard, really, to get on camera with Palin and Cleese. And he said, imagine how hard it was to get studio time with Lennon and McCartney. Point taken. Okay, I get it.
Now, did he put up the money for that, right?
I mean, yeah, he paid entirely for the budget of The Life of Brian. He mortgaged his house.
Well, here's the question I have, though. You say he mortgaged his house. Wouldn't a Beatle have a lot of money laying around that you don't have to mortgage your house to?
Well, do you remember the song Taxman?
Okay. All right. All right. I got you. Okay.
So he mortgaged his house for $4.5 million and put that all up for the budget of The Life of Brian because he wanted to see the movie. Which is still the most anybody's ever paid for a cinema ticket in history. But it still wouldn't have been made, I believe, without him
What was
doing
the
that.
story on that? The studio didn't really, but they were going to do it, and then they found out what it was about and kind of pulled out of it?
Yeah, the English EMI, the guy bought it because he loved it and read it, and it made him laugh. And then Lou Grade, who ran the company, and his brother read it and said, we're having nothing to do with this. You know, we can't do this.
Well, then he had but George had a production company after that then, right? Because
formed
he did
a
Brazil and all that?
He formed a production company called Handmade Films to make The Life of Brian. And that was the first film he made. And then the second film was Time Bandits.
Right.
And the last film was Nuns on the Run. Which, yeah.
But Brazil was in there somewhere?
Brazil was, no.
Didn't he do Brazil?
I don't think, no, I think a studio did Brazil because they wouldn't release it. I think it was Universal.
Right.
Because Terry Gilliam took an advert in the trade papers and said, dear, can't remember his name, when are you going to release my film Brazil?
Right.
So yeah, it wasn't by Handmade.
Who was the pain in the ass in the group? The guy you just, always had to be careful around?
Who was the pain in the ass?
Yeah.
Well, is that a catch question or something you know? They were, you know, it was a very good group, actually. We got on remarkably well. We were all graduates. Most of us had been to Oxford or Cambridge, apart from the American. Terry Gilliam, who had been to Occidental College. And, you know, so he came and joined us. But
You all got along well?
well, we would argue, but we'd argue about very silly things, like whether the chair should be an upright chair or a sit. You know, we'd argue about details of the comedy in the scripts.
Right.
Because unlike you people, we wrote things down and learned them and rewrote them.
I mean, when you write as a pair, though, I know you say you don't write with people, but don't you improvise while you're writing? You have to.
I don't know.
You break into characters as those characters, and
I didn't write Nudge like that.
no.
No, I wrote it. I was a writer, so I tried writing with various people, but I never really enjoyed it. I didn't like talking to people in the morning. I still don't. I think you shouldn't. No, you shouldn't talk to anybody before lunchtime. I think it's no. No gentleman would do that.
I have a feeling you would much rather be a world-famous singer than a world-famous comic.
No.
No?
No, I'd rather be a world-famous retired person.
No,
Yeah, I would. I like writing because you do it all on your own. You spend a year writing the sortabiography, which I did in France and various places, and which is fascinating, looking back over your life and trying to make some sense of it. And then suddenly it all changes, and you're on the road, and you're on Colbert, and you know things like that.
Well, what would you do if you retired?
I'd write. I just wouldn't publish.
Form another company? And, yeah.
No, but I like the experience of writing. I like getting up first thing in the morning, usually before, just around dawn, wherever I am, and then sitting down with a pencil and a pad and just seeing what's in my mind and what comes out. I find it fascinating.
But you've done a couple of American series.
I'm terrible in sitcom.
Why?
I hate it.
Because you have to hit marks and read lines and...
No,
but
well,
you guys
because
did
they
that too.
rewrite it all the bloody time. Every day you come... I did 2 sitcoms, and I did hate both of them. But every day they'd bring in a different script. And so you could never learn it. When we did Python, we would write it, all of the series, and then we'd film bits of it, the interlocking bits, and then we rehearse for 5 days and learn it. So we knew what we were doing in front of a live audience. But in sitcom, it's just awful. They, different script. And
Is that when you felt you were kind of the most creative, is when you were doing Python around that area?
I don't know. I don't remember. It's quite a long time ago.
It always seems like the people that feel they were the most creative when they were making the least amount of money for some reason.
Oh, yeah, that's definitely true. Yeah, we were definitely making the least amount of money. But
Because nobody's controlling you and you're really not.
we had complete freedom,
Yeah.
which is very, very rare in show business. There's always some bloody executive telling you how it should be funny. So we were executive-free comedy because the BBC were opening up a Sunday night slot. They figured that somebody may be staying up after 10:30 when the pubs closed, and they were right. There were people. But they didn't want to know what we were doing. They just said, they trusted John because he'd done the Frost Report. And they just said, well, just go and do 13. And they didn't read it, and they didn't bother to come to it, and they didn't watch it, and it was great.
I know, I worked over, it's a whole different thing over there. It's just much easier. For one thing, in England, if you've ever done anything, say like Lulu, you're always a star there. But here, if you don't appear somewhere for a year, they forget all about you. But you're always revered there, it seems like.
You sound a little bitter about that.
I am. I am a little. Well, Drew Carey's been off the air for 20 years now, so I have to tell people.
Well, I think that's just there's so much of show business here. Everything,
Right.
And now there's streaming and good evening, and there's you are being streamed. So if you're not here with somebody you should be, just be careful if you.
Which is how you're thinking right now.
But I mean, there's just so much in America. And sometimes people come from England and they'll say, well, how do I make myself known? And you say, you just have to keep going. Like Billy Connolly, you go round and round, and like Eddie Izzard, you have to keep coming back, and then the next time there are more people who've told each other, and eventually you sort of achieve critical mass.
Right.
And you get an HBO show.
Right, yeah. Yeah, but who are the people that you kind of looked up to when you were growing up and coming up out of that?
Beyond the Fringe,
Yeah.
which was a stage show in about 1961, which I went to London to see, and it had Peter Cook, Dudley Moore, Jonathan Miller, and Alan Bennett. And it was a review. It had come out of the Edinburgh Festival, and they were just so funny. And I didn't know you were allowed to be funny about the Queen and the Prime Minister and the Army and the Church and the Navy and everything, every institution. They just made it so funny that it sort of changed my life. And that's what I wanted to be from then on. I got the album and I learned all the sketches like people do. And I thought, oh God, this is great. You can be funny.
There's got to be, there's so many scenes, but what's the one scene that people just associate you with the most?
Well, I suppose it's Nudge, really.
Yeah.
Nudge, because, and that's only because when we came to America first in 1973, we just toured Canada, and we went down to LA, and we did the Tonight Show, which was a disaster. A total disaster. We'd gone across Canada, and everybody laughed at anything we did. They just laughed and laughed and laughed. They knew our work backwards. And, one night in Winnipeg, the curtain went up, and the whole of the front row was dressed as a caterpillar.
The alcohol in the beer is much higher in Canada.
I don't know why, but anyway, so we were we were very starry, and we went on to the Tonight Show, and we were supposed to do 30 minutes material. And we went on, and it was two of us who were going, hello, dear, hello, what do you mean? I've been burying the cat. Oh, is it dead? No, but it's not at all a well cat. They did that screeching, and we looked at the audience, and they're like this. And we did half an hour's material in 20 minutes without a laugh, and then ran outside and rolled about on the grass, because there's nothing funnier than people not laughing. I mean, just especially if you're used to it.
That's true.
So it was one of my most abiding memories of that trip.
Where was the line that you figured you needed a real woman in the scene as opposed to one of you playing a woman in the scene? Because you had real women in the scenes.
No, but it was, and it was about the fourth show, and it was in the I think Michael, maybe I wrote it. It was called a marriage guidance counselor sketch, and please no, and the point is that you need a real woman when you're playing real sex, so. Otherwise, it's bizarre, you know. If it's one of us dressed as, it's a whole different world. But because it was a scene about this Mr. Pewty, who was rather worried about his wife, you know, she wasn't entirely faithful to him, and the marriage guidance counselor is getting her behind to take her clothes off, and you know. Anyway, but that doesn't work if it's a guy. It has to be a real woman. You know, it does. And so that's when Carol Cleveland came into our lives, and she was cast as that. Yeah. And the really bizarre thing was it was episode 2 or 3, I can't remember which, but the first 4 episodes were directed by this guy called John Howard Davis, not Ian McNaughton, because he was still doing Spike Milligan series. And John Howard Davis was famous for being the little boy in David Lean's Oliver Twist. Please, sir, may I have some more? And he directed Python, the first 4. It's really bizarre, isn't it? And then he directed all of Fawlty Towers.
Oh, really?
Yeah. See, now you're interested.
And 12 of those, 12 Fawlty Towers, right? Because you guys only do like 6 a year or something? 6 episodes a year?
He did 2 series, the 6 and 7.
Yes, I keep thinking of the scene where John's teaching the class how to have sex on the desk. That probably wouldn't have gone over as big if you were the one under John on that either. I think you had to have a real... Do you remember that one?
That's in The Meaning of Life.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. What was the point? What was the question?
That's the point where you have to use a real woman as opposed to you underneath
Yes, I
John.
think exactly. That's a very good example of why you need to have a real female, you know. I mean, there were several of those moments, and but Carol did, you know, she was really funny.
She's still around?
She's still around. She came, and we got her in to do the reunion show at O2 in 2014.
Right.
Thank you, no sympathy. And next year is actually really, really sadly and sickly, next year is the 50th anniversary of Monty Python. 50 years, I know. It was 1969, October 1969.
Did you have a hard time convincing the other guys about Spamalot to get that done? Was that a big fight, or...? I'm really looking for the fights and the disagreements.
I understand. I know the way you're going because you're from a group. But actually, I was trying to write a musical. John Dupre and I had written a musical called Behind the Crease, which was a musical about cricket. So we couldn't bring it here, obviously. But it was on Radio 4, which is a great place to do a musical because you don't have to do dancing and sets and costumes. But and so we were looking for a subject to do for a musical. And I suddenly thought, oh, the Grail is actually rather great because not only is it's like the miniature version of Wagner. It's like Parsifal, you know, this huge heroic quest for the Grail. But also you can do it on stage because there's no horses. And to me it seemed that it kept being always about to be a song, like I'm Not Dead Yet, you know, which is clearly was waiting to be a song all the time. So I thought, well, how am I going to persuade them? Because they're not easy to convince, you know, these things. And so I wrote the text, I wrote the book, and then we recorded about 4 or 5 songs, of which the one they really loved was the song that goes like this, which is, and they then all said yes. And nobody was more surprised than me.
And how long's that been? That's been a while now, right?
It opened in Chicago in 2004, and on Broadway in 2005.
It doesn't seem that long ago. It doesn't seem that long ago, 14 years.
Yeah.
No movie? Is there a movie happening?
There's a movie in the works. You know, we're sort of casting it at the moment.
You're casting, so you
Well,
guys...
you need to cast an Arthur, and you have to, you know, Hollywood is such a weird, bizarre place. You'll say something really funny, And they say, oh, no, not famous enough. Not star enough. No, it's true.
Yeah.
I used to be a scriptwriter in Hollywood before I gave it up because I got tired of people lying to me at lunch. And I had this film I was developing called The Road to Mars, and it had Robin Williams, Dan Aykroyd, and David Bowie as the robot. And they said, no, that cast is just not good enough. So I turned it into a novel, which is a way to get back.
It's a horrible place, Hollywood.
It is a horror. Well, it is, but not to live. If you don't have anything to do with the business, it's a very agreeable place to live.
Is it really?
Oh, yeah, it's
rude
if you come from England, anyway.
Well, you live in a lovely, because you live like 2 houses away from Drew, don't you?
Drew Carey is actually my immediate neighbor is Sacha Baron Cohen. And he moved next door because he thought he'd feel comfortable next to me. So that was quite nice. And then next to him is Drew Carey. So I call it Comedy Corner with a K, And then it's really bizarre because you have a nap in the garden and suddenly you hear these damn tour buses going by and say, "Oh, say no more, no, I mean, nudge, nudge." And, shit. And then they'll go by and you hear them doing their Borat impersonation. I don't think they do Drew because he's not easy to impersonate, is he?
No. He doesn't. No, he's not at all. But he's looking great. He's, lost a lot of weight, and I'm very happy for him because it wasn't looking good for a while there.
No, he was.
We used to refer to him as 2.5 Men. That's how big he was back then.
I've been catching his show recently, which I'd missed, and which you're in, aren't you?
What,
The
Price,
TV show.
Price is Right?
Drew, no, not Price is Right.
Oh, the Drew Carey show.
The Drew Carey
Right,
show.
yeah.
And there's some very funny people in that.
I don't see a lot of money from that, so I don't really care about that show. What's the smallest check you've ever got? Because some people get them for pennies.
You used to get checks for pounds and shillings from the BBC for repeats of jokes that when I first started to write professionally, I got 3.5 guineas a minute for a radio show.
Yeah, I read that. What's that mean, a minute? It's like a lawyer, isn't it?
Well, for every minute's material, they'd pay you 3.5 guineas. And then they'd guarantee you 3 minutes a week, so you have a minimum wage. And then when I moved to television,
That's crazy.
It was 10.5 guineas a minute for TV, and that was really good money. You don't even know what a guinea is, do you?
Isn't a guinea a pound?
It's £1 and 1 shilling.
What's a punt?
I mean, what?
A punt.
That's Irish, isn't it? A punt?
What's
Yeah?
that? Is that a pound?
I don't know. It's a pound, right? An Irish pound, yeah. But
We're learning a lot here today.
we're a very cosmopolitan audience. It's Seattle.
Did you ever pass up a job you wish you'd taken?
No, not knowingly. No, as many I did that I wish I hadn't.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, yeah. Sitcoms.
Excuse me. I'll ask the question. Name one.
There'd be some... Well, I'd done 2 desperately bad attempts at sitcom. The first was called Nearly Departed, which was on NBC, in which I played a ghost. It was a rip-off of Topper. And I think there were 6 episodes, about which 3 aired. And then the other one I did was in the 90s. Brooke Shields asked me to be on Suddenly Susan. Because, no, she was a very lovely lady, but the lovely, funny man had died in Vegas.
Or as we used to call the show, Suddenly Snoozing.
Yeah. And it was desperately unfunny, and it was just...
But she's a lovely lady.
She's an adorable lady, and I met that lovely Kathy Griffin. We'd be backstage having a lot of laughs, and they'd come backstage and ask us to keep quiet because they were recording comedy.
I kind of felt bad for Kathy with that whole thing that happened with her.
I think it was a monstrous thing.
I wouldn't have apologized in the first place, so...
Well,
of course, I have no career, like you can put it up. But
I think it was very difficult, and she was picked on by the government and pulled off. She wasn't allowed to fly anywhere, and she was pulled off planes, and they gave her a really rough time.
what are they thinking in London or in England about this whole thing we got happening here?
You mean well, I think we had our own problems because we had Brexit.
Yeah. It's messed up everywhere. I hate Trump. I really hate him. It's just getting worse and worse. It's just...
Well, I escaped to France because I can't take it anymore, because you can't get away from it in America. It's on everywhere, airports, and everywhere you go, it's this Trump, 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 because he's a major, wonderful, brilliant, self-publicizing, narcissistic Nazi. I think not since Joseph Goebbels has anybody been that effective at propaganda, because he keeps moving the dice. I mean, one week he's being laughed at the UN, then the next day he's got something else. He just keeps getting you annoyed. And so I took a decision this year to just go away and not listen about him, because I think he needs that. He needs that attention.
But what is it about the people that support him that just can't see this? I don't understand how you can't see that.
Well, otherwise they wouldn't be in power. I mean, it's
Well,
true,
I know
though.
that.
It's true. The only way Republicans can be in power is if they cheat. It's true, because they're in a minority. It's their dilemma. What will they do? But the last 7 or 8 elections, they've been in the minority of the vote, so people want power, and so they make compromises with the devil. In which case, that sort of explains Lindsey Graham, I think.
Ugh.
I don't know.
Any other titles that you thought maybe you were going to use for that?
For this book?
Yeah.
I think I used to call it Say No More, because I thought that's kind of a nice title. And, I wanted that on my tombstone. and then I thought, my next thought was, no, I'd rather have, I'd like a second opinion. And then Billy Connolly, he's wonderful. He wanted on his tombstone, carved very small letters, "Ouch, you're standing on my balls."
Did this, the song, was it written before you did the crucifixion scene, or was it something that kind of came to you halfway through it? Or?
No, it was during the writing of The Life of Brian. And we were sort of, occasionally we'd all write together, especially on the films, you have to do that. And we realized that all our characters were heading for crucifixion. How the heck were we going to end the movie? And so I said, well, clearly we have to end with a song. And they said, what? And they said, yeah, but it has to be, it could be on the crosses, but it has to be ridiculously cheery. Stupidly optimistic, something like looking on the bright side. And I said, then it should have a whistle, like a Disney song.
Really? That's how it...
They said, yeah, that's it, we can all go home now. And they put it in the script. I've called I'm Looking on the Bright Side. And I went home and I wrote it. When I got home, it took me about 20 minutes. And
How many times do you have to do that before you get through it?
What do you mean?
Before you, as soon as the whistling started, you'd think you'd be breaking up on that.
In the film?
Yeah.
No,
when you're shooting it.
Oh, no, by the time you're shooting it, it's months later, maybe a year later, and you're stuck somewhere down in Tunisia. It was rather cold. I don't to complain about being crucified, but, it's quite, actually, I do think it was very interesting. It's very philosophical, because 3 days being sort of, we didn't have nails, obviously, but we had little bicycle seats, and there was 34 of us up on the crosses, and only 3 ladders.
Oh, no.
So if you needed a pee between takes, you had to shout and scream desperately.
Yeah, because there was no luxuries.
I think it's very, I think it's quite interesting. It was very interesting, because, you have to be kind of philosophical and think, well, this is what it's like. It's quite, I think it's quite good. I thought it was very instructive. It was. I'm serious. I think it puts your life into sort of perspective when you do that. And we were very careful about, people accuse us of just being blasphemous, which is not true. We'd all been grown up in churches like this at school. I had to go to church from the age of 7, twice on Sundays, every Sunday. And so I must have heard the Bible, which I love, the King James Bible, at least 3 or 4 times read aloud. So this lovely language, this sort of Shakespearean language is coming at you. And I love being in the choir I love singing and learning how to read dots, and we go and sing in Lichfield Cathedral with other mass choirs. I really enjoyed that. And so when we decided, well, it came from a very bad thing I said, not for the first time. We were opening the Holy Grail in New York, and somebody said, "What is your next film going to be?" And I said, "Jesus Christ, Lust for Glory." And then when we got back to England, John said, "Actually, it's very interesting. That's a very interesting subject to deal with because nobody's ever treated it with comedy." You know, and it's true. So we treated it very seriously. We spent about a month and a half reading the Dead Sea Scrolls and what's it called? The Incunabula? No, what the other books that didn't make it in, which are very fascinating. Some of the tales of the resurrection, extraordinary. There's like 18-foot people, angels outside, you know, with rolling aside stones. And these, so, I mean, the Bible's a library. It's been selected by people over the years. And so these were passages that didn't make it. But one thing we agreed right at the beginning is you wouldn't make fun of Jesus Christ because everything he says is good. I mean, almost everything, like the Beatitudes. He wants people to be kind and forgiving to people, feed the poor, heal the sick. Everything he says you can't possibly quarrel with. You can't get comedy out of it. And so that meant that we then focused on the followers and churches, which are, of course, run by human beings, and betray the same failings. So,
But there must have been protests on that.
there were protests when it opened, but mainly by people who didn't see the film, who thought it was going to be just mocking religion, which it actually isn't, because Jesus Christ is in the film twice, once at his birth, when we make it very clear that the wise men have gone to the wrong stable. And it's Mandy's. Oh, yeah, it's the wrong stable. I'll keep the myrrh. And then so they go next door, and this is Brian being born. And also then again, you move forward in time, and there's the Sermon on the Mount, and there's Ken Colley. You're giving the Sermon on the Mount, and then you pull right back to the back of the crowd and say, "I think he said, 'Blessed are the cheesemakers,'" you know, which is clearly before, microphones.
You got another song?
What?
You want to do another song?
No, let's save it. Let's save it up.
Oh, you're going to save it?
Let's save it up.
You want to answer some
I mean,
audience questions?
Sure. I mean, that's yeah. If you like, we do that.
Oh, my goodness. I already asked you that.
What?
How's the planning for Spamalot, the movie, coming? I guess I should have looked at that before. Yeah.
Who should play Arthur? Who do you think?
Should
Very
what?
hard.
Should what?
Who should play Arthur? Who? What did you say?
Oh, I thought he said
yes.
Ben Gazzara.
Absolutely.
You know that's going to be somebody like, they're going to make the wrong choice. It's going to be like, Seth Rogen or someone, or, you know that. You know who they're going to try to cast in this.
Yes, I do.
That's what I love about England, too. Another thing, they could care less what you look like on television over there. They deal with the talent first, and then looks as secondary, where here, they don't really care. They just put on attractive people who can't act.
I know.
Again, I'm really bitter that I haven't worked in a long time.
I remember being shocked and watching Canadian television, and there were old people reading the news.
Oh, yeah.
Who looked like regular folk.
With regular names. They
And
weren't
proper
named
teeth.
after mountains and, oceans, Johnny Ocean.
Yeah? Stormy
Did
Daniels.
you write the words and the music to the Who asked that? If they wrote the words and music to the Lumberjack song?
No,
Someone must have.
I did not. Michael Palin and Terry Jones wrote that, and the music was written by somebody else.
Was George Harrison in one of those shots as a lumberjack?
George Harrison came, when we played City Center in New York in about 1975, George came on stage as one of the as one of the Mounties one night. And it was just brilliant. He was just, there he was, and they would sing, and no fuss, no attention, nobody noticed. It was just great, and he sort of loved it. And then Harry Nilsson heard about this, and he was going to appear. He had to come on stage, And Harry Nilsson, you know, was rarely sober. So they dressed him up, and he came on with dark glasses, and he was pissed, and he lurched about the stage and attracted all the attention. And we told him, when the curtain falls, you know, just step back, the curtain will fall, and we come forward and take a bow. And so we finished the song, and then we looked around, and where's Harry? And he'd gone forward to greet the audience with great cheers, fallen off the stage into the pit and broke his wrist. So some of the, you know, crueler members laughed a little at that.
I think a lot of people might have the wrong impression about George just because he didn't. You never see a lot of stuff about him smiling or laughing or.
He never stopped laughing.
But you didn't really see that with George.
Well, you weren't at his
I mean,
house.
you did.
Yeah, no, that's nice. But I mean, people are amazed when I said I was good friends with David Bowie. And he loved to laugh. He just would all the time. He laughed all the time. And we would improvise gay dresses. We would say, oh, I love what you're wearing. Oh, where did you get that shirt from? This does your body really well. So we'd improvise these really annoying characters all the time on holiday.
But you and George never masturbated while lying next to each other or anything like that, did you? I think everybody was waiting for me to ask that.
To be perfectly candid, George told me that went on. But they were 14 or 15. You know, which boys don't do that
Well,
at 14 or 15?
I don't really remember doing that.
Well, it was clearly before they had anybody else to do it for them, if you see what I mean. And they were at 16, they were playing in Hamburg. So.
And by the way, who cares?
Well, clearly, I don't know, what was he selling? His album, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he's being a bit honest, I think, a bit too honest. But, yeah.
Yep. All right, I'm moving on. Oh, blank ones. Was the fish slapping dance the first Python segment to be filmed?
No. But it was when we were all asked to select our favorite bits of Python, we all selected our own favorite sketches, and quite interestingly, nobody chose the same sketches at all in like an hour's material. But everybody chose the fish slapping dance. So all our best ofs all start with the fish slapping dance.
What's your? Is there a scene that you just did not want to do that you still had to do? Just when like, oh crap, we have to do that again, that kind of thing?
Well, no, there was a sketch that I wrote that got cut very early. The BBC hated it, and John collaborated with them because he found it disgusting and repulsive. And when we went on tour about 2 years ago, recently, I made him do it every night. And it was very simple. It was a wine tasting sketch, and the guy would hand me a glass of wine, and I'd go, oh yes, no, this is a Riesling grape. It's from the south side of the hill, very sandy soil, and I would say it was a Sancerre. No, sir, it is wee-wee. Try this one. Oh yes, well, there's no mistaking this. It's a Burgundy grape. It's clearly from the Beaujolais. No, sir, it is wee-wee. That was the length of the sketch. It just descended from there.
And yet you made him do it. You made him do it every night.
I made him do it every night on stage, and it would get laughs.
Why can't performers just refuse to do it? Because you just can't do it, right? You have to do it.
Why
couldn't have John said, "No, I'm not going to do that"?
Well, I think he found it disgusting in 1969.
So he just wanted to do it.
He didn't want it on the TV show.
Oh.
Yeah.
What? And I'm kind of curious about this. What would be the ideal idle day? It starts in the morning. I
like to get up early, as I said.
Coffee?
No
Coffee anymore?
Coffee,
tea?
No. I do tea, but first of all, I drink about a big bottle of water. Somebody once told me that if you drink water, you've dehydrated at night, and it puts water into your lungs, and that creates oxygen, which goes straight to your brain and wakes you up. And I found that a very useful...
Water in your lungs?
the lungs get dehydrated,
Oh, yeah,
and
but
then
you don't necessarily
hydrate
want
them with the water,
yeah, yeah.
and they produce
I
oxygen.
don't think this is right, Eric.
Well, you come from a coffee-drinking nation that guzzles all this coffee, gets maddened by the radio, and drives to work. Saying, don't tell that asshole to get over here. You see, but then I drink tea, and I have different teas throughout the day. And I start off with Lapsang Souchong, which is a smoky Chinese tea, which is a bit like tea and a cigarette. And then I move through the day.
Are you a veggie or anything like that?
I don't eat meat.
You don't eat meat?
No, and not since 1977.
Really?
Really?
So what's the rule on your eyes? Is it eyes or
No,
eggs,
I think our own species. No mammals.
Oh.
So I eat fish.
Oh, you do?
know,
Okay.
I'm pescatarian.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
But that happened in 1977.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
before it was popular.
Is it popular?
Yeah, I think it
I
is.
guess so.
Is there an exercise regimen?
We do pool exercises, so we're in LA. So we have those weights.
Oh, the little
you know, in
fan
the pool,
things
so
that- yeah.
It's very healthy. The pool's really good. I mean, swimming's one of the reasons I moved to LA is I like to swim. I think it's really great for your body. It's a full total.
Yeah, I used to do those exercises in the pool, and you feel like you're cheating a bit because you're not really, you're doing this in the pool with like the resistant thing. And,
Well, my wife's very social. So people come and visit, and they all do it together. So it's kind of, and she plays music, so it's very nice. It's good fun.
but you're feeling healthy? You're feeling good?
Not bad.
You still writing every day? Or?
Well, not on the road. No.
Right. You still like being on the road?
Yeah. I
Is
mean,
it's the packing and unpacking of the suitcase, isn't
and the
it?
traveling. It's the I learned that very early. I did a tour of the USA in about 2000, and getting on planes was not quite as bad as it is now. But then in 2003, I found this wonderful thing called the tour bus, which is fabulous. And we went from Boston, 15,000 miles across America, stopping every night to do a show in these wonderful old theaters. And I really enjoyed that because you were living inside the bus.
Yeah, it's kind of fun, but you really have to trust the driver.
Yeah. Well, our driver was called English.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So we trusted him.
And it's just bad food, and it's horrible. It really is.
You don't like it, I'm
I
taking
don't. I
it.
hate it.
Yeah. Well, I had this the back room is fantastic. You have your own bathroom, own loo, and then big, beautiful music speakers, and we would drive through Vermont. We did go through Vermont in the...
Oh, no, the tour bus is great.
Yeah.
But there's other ones where you're in a van or a car.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
No. And when I went with Cleese, it was even better. We got a tour bus, and we'd stay in Four Seasons. And then have the tour bus so we could nap between sleeping in Four Seasons. We were older, circumcised, eh?
I knew there was going to be something. I just didn't know what it was going to be. All right. Your favorite Oh, that's an interesting question. Your favorite non-Python music piece?
Well, I mean, I think "Here Comes the Sun" would probably be one of my favorite pieces. And in 1976, they sent Voyager 1 and 2 out into space, and they put the sounds of the Earth on I think it was it a gold disc? And it's still just leaving the solar system, actually. And on that, they had all the sounds of the Earth, and they wanted to put a Beatles song, "Here Comes the Sun," on it. And Lou Grade, the publisher, said no, they couldn't have the copyright. In 2 million years, somebody may get to accept that, but at least he didn't give the rights away.
I used to jog to "My Sweet Lord." It's the best song to jog to.
Yeah.
It really is. It's just got the right beat for jogging, and it's such a happy song.
Yeah.
I don't know why I'm thinking of this question, because it really has nothing to do with anything, but "To Sir with Love," did you cry when Lulu sang at the end?
What?
"To Sir with Love"?
To Sir with Love.
Remember
is this
Lulu? Lulu
Again,
sang
you
it
have a
at
bit
the
of a
end. Any
Lulu
tears?
obsession, I'm noticing. Yeah.
Any tears?
I don't remember.
What's the last movie you cried at?
I don't really remember. I don't like movies much.
You don't go to. I don't go to movie theaters. No.
I did. I went to see the Paul Feig film. What was it called? A Simple Favor, which I very much enjoyed. It was very good.
Oh, I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I miss drive-ins. Did you have? You didn't have drive-ins in Britain, did you?
Who?
drive-in movies?
No.
Oh, they're fantastic. They're fantastic.
I know, I heard about them, but have you ever seen the English weather? What's on there? You know, you have to have the windscreen wipers on all the bloody time.
Yeah, but if you went to see Twister or something, it would just add more to it. Right?
But they were more about dating, weren't they?
It's very American, I guess.
Very American, and I think it's more like southern, and you have to be in a nice warm climate.
Right. Do you eat a lot of Indian?
Eat Indian?
Yeah, I don't know why I'm asking these odd questions.
Curry?
Because it's good for a lot of veggie dishes in Indian, right?
I like Indian food, yeah. Sure.
I'm just trying to get
Are you hungry? Are you trying to say we should go to dinner?
I've got questions about, because I'm getting older now, and I've got a lot of questions about stuff like that.
Yeah,
like
I understand.
skin tags and things like that. And, because I find things on my body every day that, where did that come from? And, you know.
I know. Well, the body does turn into a rather repellent thing you have to carry around, I'm afraid, yeah.
I'll go weeks without looking at my penis. Weeks.
I've been years without looking at your penis.
But you were quite the player, weren't you, early on?
Bit of a go, is that what you're trying to say?
According to the book you wrote you were.
Yeah, I mean, we had our naughty times, so we were on the road, you know, in Canada, and the Canadian girls were very, very agreeable. And
now, why do you think that is that Canadian girls would be?
well, we hadn't got to America yet. It was the North American female generally.
Right, yeah.
So they were nice and friendly, and you know, welcoming. And we were young and stupid, yeah.
What age do you think you really grow up at?
For men,
Yeah.
do they ever grow up? Yes.
Yeah, they do. They get
I
to a
think
point where.
you know, about in the mid-30s, you should be growing up a bit.
Yeah.
But otherwise, you know, I used to say the brain has two organs, which is the brain and the penis, and only enough blood to run one at a time.
That's my problem. Okay. I've just been thinking too much. Okay. If you needed help, that's a horrible question. If you needed help burying a dead body, which member of the Python group would you ask to help and why?
Well, Cleese, because he could dig better than anybody else, obviously. And he wouldn't ask questions. He said, come on, we've got to go and have a drink. But we did used to talk about, when we were on filming, hours on filming, we'd play a game that if we were in a plane and we went down in the Andes, what order would we eat everybody in?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And we decided, well, the first choice was Graham, because he's always late. He never showed up.
But who would
so we'd miss him least.
But who would be the most tender, you think?
Then we decided, well, Graham got a pass because he was a doctor, so he'd know how to cut the body up properly. So, you know.
Right.
So then we chose John Cleese because his body would last longer. We wouldn't have to kill anybody before then.
Yeah, but that would be stringy and a lot of tendons, and you want someone.
There's a lot of flesh on him now.
Is there?
Yeah.
Does he take care of
One
him?
of the questions, we used to do Q&A on our tour, and every night somebody would say, how pregnant are you?
Oh.
I wouldn't read them out.
Oh, no.
No.
You never read one out?
Not really.
No, this is the most played song at funerals in Britain, isn't it?
The Always Look on the Bright Side has been the #1 song sung at British funerals since 2004. And thank you. No, it's good. It replaced My Way, which I'm rather proud of, really.
People sing at British funerals?
Yes.
Really?
They sing Always Look on the Bright Side all the time. They do.
That's lovely.
It sort of helps to relieve.
Have you thought, and this, you have many years left on this earth, but when you do go, are you going to get cremated, or what are you going to do? Because I know what I'm doing, and I think Hunter Thompson had the best thing where they put his ashes in fireworks and set off fireworks that night.
That's odd, because Graham Chapman did that. They sent
did he really?
Yeah, they sent his ashes up into space. I don't really care, because it's not really you at that point.
Right.
You know, it's just, and I do think that there's something in reincarnation, because all your carbon atoms get recycled into something else. So I'd like to be reincarnated as a Tesla. so my wife can still drive me, you know. So.
But you'd have to be so quiet all the time. You wouldn't be able to.
Yeah, well, I don't think you're very noisy after death, are you?
Oh, I suppose not.
During, but not afterwards.
All right. Oh, please update us on the Rutles. Please update us on the Rutles.
Well,
You know, remember the Rutles?
Does anybody know the Rutles? It was.
Of course.
Yeah, it was a sort of a Beatle parody, and I actually one of my favorite things I ever did was in about 2003-ish. I did a sequel. It was called All You Need Is Cash, the original, in 1977, and then in 2000 I did one called Can't Buy Me Lunch, where I dressed as the interviewer and went around and interviewed very famous people about the influence of the Rutles on their lives. So I'd go to someone like Tom Hanks, and I'd question him about the Rutles, and Salman Rushdie, people like that. They talk very interestingly, and Hanks cried. You know, his tears ran down his face as he remembered the Rutles breaking up, which is actually rather wonderful. And then, my favorite was Gary Shandling. And I went, and I said, well, what do you think of A Hard Day's Rut? And he said, A Hard Day's Rut? I loved A Hard Day. I loved A Hard Day's Rut. I loved it. The train came in, and then the train came in, and then the Nazis came. He said, I'm having a little bit of trouble confusing Hard Day's Rut with Schindler's List.
Oh, no. Oh, no, no. No, no. That must have, I bet Paul's the one who hated that, right?
Paul was a little, when he saw it, when we met him in the park, my wife and I, and he was walking with Linda, and he said, well, we're not sure we're talking to you, after the screening in England. But Linda loved it.
Oh, she did?
Oh, she absolutely did, because she liked all the send up of Paul.
And John was okay with it?
John, I heard that he and Yoko absolutely adored it and wanted to go down to SNL to appear on it. And then George, of course, helped me do it. He showed me this film they never released called The Long and Winding Road, which they'd put together all their footage, but none of them could ever agree on the final cut. And it eventually, in the 90s, became anthology, all those bits and pieces. So my film of the Rutles is actually a parody of a film that was never released.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Did you have to take any, you never thought they might sue you on that or anything? Or the Beatles might get pissed off and sue you on that or something?
Well, George helped me. He's in it. Yeah, he's in it. He's interviewing Michael Palin, who plays Derek Taylor, you know, about Apple. So
that was the first kind of fake documentary kind of thing,
It was the first mockumentary ever made, yes,
yeah.
It was. So it was on NBC. So it's before Spinal Tap, and it's before Zelig. So, yeah.
Now was that written too, or was that, because I know Spinal Tap, a lot of that was improvised. Did you improvise a lot of the Rutles, or did you guys stick to the script and that was it?
In Python?
Yeah.
Pretty much so, yes.
Yeah.
I can only remember one time an ad-lib got in, and that was in Holy Grail, when we're in the mud village and the king's just come by, and I said, that was a king. He said, how'd you know? I said, he hasn't got shit all over him. And that was actually one of the very few ad-libs of Python.
Okay. Well, what's your most fond memory of George Harrison?
I don't know. I mean, he was a very good friend. He was my friend since 1975 till he died, and I was there at the end. You know, I would go and visit him on his deathbed and try and cheer him up. But he wasn't. What was interesting to me is that we only ever disagreed on religion. That's all. The other thing we talk all night and all day, but I think he was born a Catholic, and he became Hindu. And so when he was on his deathbed, he was very happy because he felt he wasn't going to have to face rebirth. Whereas I do anything for it, you know what I mean? So, that to me was very salutary. And he would always talk about they were the biggest things in the world, the biggest and most popular, but it didn't matter, everybody has to die. So you had to come to terms with your own death, and he began preparing for that in the late 70s. So he was very comfortable with it. And it was a lesson I took to heart.
Well, it's nice that you get to share that as a, I mean, Robin's, I mean, that, that one really hit me. I mean, it was just like, just
Robin
out of the blue.
Yeah, that was really sad.
Because he's such a sweet man.
A very, very sweet man, and sad and unexpected. And he did have this Lewy bodies disease thing, which was not diagnosed, and they only found it out at the autopsy.
Well, where'd you meet him?
I met Robin in England, in London, in 1980,
Right.
at the comic strip, and he was just a force of nature. I've never seen anything like it. I mean, he was like, it's like as if Einstein decided to do stand-up. He was so brilliant. I mean, I just couldn't believe it. And then we became friends, and I would follow him around in San Francisco and in clubs, and he would just go on, and it's just amazing.
It's funny because he was kind of, if you were alone with him in a room, he's completely different than if one other person came in. Then he had to perform if there was more than,
But he had to trust you to be unfunny.
Right.
Because until you got to know him, he would insist on being funny. But then when you finally got to know him, he would stop having to be funny and feel that pressure.
And he never had an entourage, and he just always came into a room by himself. And
very, very sweet, very normal and lovely man.
Yeah, it was a shame. It was a horrible day.
Well, that's cheered everybody up.
Yeah. That's why I saved it for the end. Well, this should cheer them up. What's the worst place you've ever been to?
The worst place?
Yes. The worst place that you never went back to. Because you travel a lot.
Yeah, no.
Is it Michael that travels a lot?
Yeah.
You get along with Michael?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, Michael's very nice. He's very lovely. He's very sweet, and he's known as, it sort of annoys him, but he's known as a very nice man. And occasionally I'm mistaken for him when I'm traveling around, and when I am, I always say, yes, I am Michael Palin. Now fuck off, you ugly old bastard. But without question, the worst place I ever was at was Wolverhampton for 12 years.
Where?
Wolverhampton. It's in the middle of England.
Oh, it's actually in England is the worst place you've been to.
England, and it was just a really grim and awful place. It's not quite the end of the world, but you can see it from there.
And where's heaven for you? Where's the...
Heaven?
France?
It's probably France, yes. Yeah. I do love Provence.
And you speak French?
I speak French enough to annoy them.
Can you say my shoe is not tender today? Could you say that?
My shoe is not tender today?
Yes, in French.
Mon chaussure, c'est pas tendre aujourd'hui.
It still sounds sexy, doesn't it? It still sounds good.
Okay, did you ever have to say that to somebody?
Well, you don't mind flying or anything then?
I don't mind flying.
Yeah?
No, I love flying.
Don't get nervous?
I love flying. It's, it's less good nowadays where you have to take your shoes off.
Right.
But I've got to the age now I don't have to take my shoes off. It's the only known advantage of being over 75. You don't have to take your shoes off at the airport. I don't know why.
Why is that?
I don't know why.
Well, because you probably...
I guess it takes them too long. At this age, got to get... no, all right, just go through.
Are you wearing pants?
Excuse me?
Are you wearing pants?
Now?
No, I know you're wearing... Do you want to sing?
Should we sing? Should we close up with a song? Yeah.
Sing something for us.
Right. Let's just close up with a song. Maybe everybody... I'll do this one I really like. Do you know the Philosopher's Song? Yes. Would you join
They know
in?
everything you do. That's why they're here. There's nobody that just wandered in here and went, oh, who's this guy?
I thought they were your fans. You're from here.
Yeah, sure.
All right, then let's see if we can join in. If anybody knows it, please help me. This is the Bruce's Philosopher's Song. They're all called Bruce, the philosophers, and it goes like this. Immanuel Kant was a real pissant who was very rarely stable. Heidegger was a boozy beggar who could think you under the table. David Hume could out-consume Schopenhauer and Hegel. And Wittgenstein was a beery swine who was just as sloshed as Schlegel. There's nothing Nietzsche couldn't teach you about the raising of the wrist. Socrates himself was permanently pissed. John Stuart Mill, of his own free will, on half a pint of shandy was particularly ill. Plato, they say, stick it away, half a crate of whiskey every day. Aristotle was a bugger for the bottle. Hobbes was fond of his dram, and René Descartes was a drunken fart. I drink, therefore I am. Yes, Socrates himself is particularly missed. A lovely little thinker, but a bugger when he's pissed. Thank you. And we should close with the song from the book. But first, I'd like to thank Ryan Stiles for being so kind and coming all the way. We're very, very, thank you. Some things in life are bad, they can really make you mad. Other things just make you swear and curse. When you're chewing on life's gristle, that grumble, give a whistle, and this'll help things turn out for the best. And always look on the bright side of life. Always look on the light side of life. If life seems jolly rotten, there's something you've forgotten, and that's to laugh and smile and dance and sing. When you're feeling in the dumps, forget about the trumps and purse your lips and whistle, that's the thing. So always look on the bright side of death. Just before you draw your terminal breath. 'Cause life's a piece of shit when you look at it. Life's a laugh and death's a joke, it's true. You see it's all a show, keep 'em laughing as you go. Just remember that the last laugh is on you. And always look on the bright side of life. Come on, Seattle. Always look on the light side of life. Always look on the bright